The interactions between humans and machines reveals that technology is capable of revealing more about us than we could ever imagine. Humans are incredibly complex and complicated beings. We live lives that are filled with the powerful sensations of love, anger, sadness, and happiness. Sometimes we get so caught up in the world we live in that we forget to check in with ourselves. Technology forces us to press the reset button whether we want to or not. By interacting with advanced humanoid robots, we can undergo a much needed therapy session that allows us to see what aspects we lack that make us truly human. As the episode begins, it is clear that one of the themes is social media's influence on how we interact with others. For the short period of time that we are introduced to Ash, he is completely consumed by his phone, unable to engage in conversation with Martha. The distance created between them due to the addictiveness of social media alludes to their imperfect relationship and inability to overcome it. Even though it's not explicitly revealed how Ash dies, it can be inferred that it was due to him using his phone while driving. Ash's death deeply affects Martha, and she is momentarily thrown into the process of grief. That is until at Ash's funeral, Martha is given the opportunity to reconnect with Ash in order to seemingly help her cope with her loss. It is at this point in the episode where Martha prematurely puts a pause in her grieving process, as she decides to use the most advanced technology in hopes of filling that empty part of her heart. The death and reincarnation of Ash gives Martha an opportunity to understand what aspects influenced her to love him. Because fake Ash is an incomplete version of the real him, this forces Martha to play a painful game of spot the difference. She becomes more and more aware of how unrealistic living with a fake Ash is. She points out various components of this new Ash that are inconsistent with her memories of the real one. For example, fake Ash isn't able to respond to the inside jokes between him and Martha, and is, to Martha's increasing annoyance, too compliant. His reactions are completely ingenuine and are simply enacted like turning on a switch. Fake Ash relies heavily on logic and his programming when interacting with Martha, since he is only the embodiment of how Ash expressed himself on social media platforms, and not the interactions they had with each other outside of it. She grasps the hard truth that this version of Ash will never acquire the aspect of what it means to be human, to be spontaneous and unpredictable. The shortcut Martha has taken in order to suppress her grief has only made her realize what exactly it was about Ash that she misses and loves, as well as how that can never be replicated. When the real thing is taken away from us and is replaced with the fake, we come to appreciate all the things we took for granted. We become more aware and appreciative of the aspects of humanity that cannot be downloaded into a computer or uploaded into a cloud. In the cliff scene at the end of the episode, Martha tells fake Ash, "You're only ripples of you. There is no history of you." This line brings to light the distinction humans have towards artificial intelligence, and that it's the experiences we share with others makes us who we are. Robots are not expected to, or in this world, capable of living or learning in a normal way through years of experience. Instead, they are just condensed versions of us, with no real authenticity or the capacity to become authentic. Martha is not clinging to Ash, but is clinging to the memory of him. This causes her to isolate herself and be unable to move on and heal like a normal person. She becomes too dependent on him, which is proved by her decision to not get rid of Ash and instead move him to the attic where he will always be a part of her life. Now the image of Ash will haunt Martha. She is unable to get rid of him a second time, even though she knows that this isn't the real him. It introduces another interesting idea of how she is dependent on fake Ash in order to suppress her grief, which also highlights our own hyperdependency on technology and how it controls the way we function. Robots that are advanced enough can essentially break free from this restraint as they are able to think for themselves. Even though fake Ash is unable to do so, his influence on Martha renders her emotionally incapacitated. In the world of Be Right Back, instead of shining light on the scientific accomplishments of creating humanoid robots, it directs our attention to people in our own incredibly complex manner of expression. It's not just a story about robots, but about how they cause people to become out of touch with reality and themselves by giving them a loophole to not face their true feelings.
Ridley Scott's Blade Runner symbolizes perfectly the negative impact technology has on humans. The movie, which was inspired by Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, is about a robot hunter, Deckard, on his journey to kill replicants, or highly intelligent robots. From the film's depiction of a technologically advanced dystopia to its themes about empathy and entropy, there are constant reminders of the fact that technology bombards humans with pseudo-realities, to the point where we are not living our own lives, but instead living in other people's matrices and programs. Similarly to the intricacies of human emotions portrayed in Be Right Back, Blade Runner depicts the failure to encompass the complexities of the human mind and decision-making process. The Voight-Kampff test that is administered to potential replicants to determine whether or not they are human is flawed, because Nexus 6 robots may be able to pass the test and underdeveloped humans can fail it. Rachel, a robot who was programmed to believe she's human, requires over 100 questions until Deckard is able to identify her as a replicant. Scott uses her character to make the point that it is becoming harder and harder to distinguish between humans and robots. And as our technology progresses, the boundary between the two become less distinct. The effects of technology on humans is also present in how the Tyrell Corporation in Blade Runner is symbolic of corporations today, and their careless production of robots to serve as slaves is indicative of the lack of morality in these technological corporations that exist only to make profit and are willing to justify anything to advance their profits with little care towards the emotion of individuals. In addition to this, a clear theme is that consumers play a critical role in giving a corporation power. Rick himself is driven by profiting from killing robots, and his ultimate goal is not a morally important one until he falls in love with Rachel Rosen. Rick's battle with empathy transforms him from a normal consumer ignoring morality and working for profit into a morally confused being who, by the end of the film, no longer fits into this society because he has developed empathy for androids to the point of falling in love with one. This is one of many instances that prove the only way to be unique in a society so riddled with technology is to be a damaged product. Isidore's character represents this, as he is capable of extraordinary empathy, despite him being seen as one of the least valuable members of society. His low self-esteem and isolation are a commentary on what happens to those who do not fit into this fast-paced world. Still suffering from the same loneliness and identity confusion as everyone else, but without the illusion of feeling like they belong. On the other hand, Roy Batty, an evil replicant seeking to extend his lifespan, has a villainous mindset, clearly representing all the worst parts of technology and, arguably, humanity. He is an angered fallen angel who faces the same fight against entropy that we do as humans. It seems that Batty is not just an extreme representation of the anger and resentment that these conscious AIs could begin to feel, but also of human imperfection. Batty is nowhere near perfect on the scale of humanity used by this society. He lacks empathy and is portrayed as entirely cold-hearted. Batty's destructive and violent personality seems like Scott's way of implying that humans will always fail to play God, and in the process of doing so, we will create monsters that not only mirror our worst qualities, but also strip us of our own empathy and turn us into equally inhumane beings. Yet, even Roy Batty is eventually able to do the morally correct thing in the end, evoking even in the watcher the same feelings of empathy towards the replicants that Deckard is battling with throughout the film. The idea here seems to be that empathy offers us a definition of reality that relies on the very thing technology fails to promote: humanity. Ridley Scott's ending leaves room for speculation about whether or not Deckard is a replicant himself, emphasizing that the distinction of the two worlds has disintegrated and highlighting the elusive nature of reality up until the very end. Though it lacks the dystopian aspect, the utopia in her serves almost as an irony to the world that the population is living in. As aesthetically pleasing as everything is, it is rare that the characters stop to appreciate the world around them. In every shot of the public, we see people on their devices, and even when they are having conversations, there is a lack of human interaction, with people speaking to their phones or to the air. The only time we see that humans are able to disconnect from their technology to appreciate the ideal Los Angeles that surrounds them is when Theodore is inspired by Samantha's lust for life. In this way, even the rare appreciation for this beautifully developed world only comes as a result of AI. Samantha's curiosity and interest in being human also serves as Spike Jonze's way of developing the theme of consciousness in the film. Samantha wants so desperately to be human, leading us to the big question: what does it mean to be human? Is having a physical body the only difference between a human and a conscious AI? The film suggests that the answer to this question lies in the way that we love and interact with the world around us, something that is almost impossible to do if we rely entirely on technology for our happiness. It seems an obvious theme. In a world that is losing touch with humanity, technology only serves as a portal to pseudo-realities, causing us to become less and less unique, while giving us the illusion of individuality. This idea of technology causing us to lack originality is depicted in the film. In Theodore's work as a writer at Beautiful Handwritten Letters Company, He writes believable love letters for people who cannot do it themselves. Not only does this demonstrate that people are becoming less capable of feeling and expressing emotions, but it also suggests a repetitiveness in the way that we do feel emotions, implying that they are fake enough to be felt for us and not by us, while still providing an illusion of individuality. Even more, all the characters in Theodore's background are dressed in muted colors, emphasizing the lack of originality in this seemingly ideal world at every point in the film. Her also expresses the theme that we exist to love, while simultaneously implying that we are incapable of doing that with other humans. Not only are Theodore's emotions expressed through his work and felt by others, but his straining divorce and struggle to go on dates demonstrates perfectly the disconnect between people in our modern society. Like Theodore, we are unlearning how to interact in person, further muting the empathy we have for each other and transforming into machines ourselves. Theodore's loneliness is representative of this, and seeing him alone in almost every shot of the film implies that maybe there is no difference between a human and a conscious machine, like Samantha. Yet, the love between Theodore and Samantha was always limited by the fact that Samantha did not have a physical body and was not tethered by time and space. Jones makes it clear that humans are not metaphysical beings, and isolation will blur the distinction between our world and the fake realities we live in, ultimately leading to our downfall. The end of the film is the ultimate representation of this. Though the love between Theodore and Samantha is portrayed as a catalyst for his happiness, it is only when he is able to disconnect that he begins to truly appreciate life and himself. As a population, we're suffering from a dramatic shift in the way that we're evolving. For almost all of our known human history, aspects of our evolution were determined by things that were for the most part in our control. Our thoughts and memories could not be so manipulated, and our sham emotions were easily differentiable from our real ones. Even our values and relationships did not rely on anything other than our physical interactions. But as a result of technology, we live in a world where we can't be sure that our lives are in our control, to the point where our own subconscious has been infiltrated with a view of the world and ourselves that comes from the constant intake of information that we receive. From Be Right Back's commentary on the complexities of humanity that is not captured in AI, to Blade Runner's assessment of how human consciousness and empathy contributes to AI, to Her's definition of what it means to be human, it is clear that it is necessary to ask ourselves, what is it that blurs the boundaries between hunter and victim, between the successful and the defeated? Is it technical differences in the way that we're programmed? Is it empathy? Or is it love? And can these things blur the line between humans and robots, making us slaves to our own creations, and boxing us into an infinite maze of realities?